Welcome to the Menopause Stories podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Tamara Beckford, founder and medical director of Truly Balanced Wellness Care. This is the space where we stop the guesswork and start the optimization. We're pulling back the curtain on that midlife hijack and giving high-achieving women the clinical roadmaps and unfiltered stories they need to reclaim their edge. Let's get into today's story. Hey, welcome back to Menopause Stories. I'm so glad that you're here. Okay, today we're going to talk about something that so many women go through in perimenopause and menopause, but very few people are talking about it out loud. Yes, low libido. That quiet, slow fade of desire the moment you realize that you can't actually remember the last time you wanted sex. Not just had it, but genuinely wanted it. And if that's where you are right now, I just want to say, listen carefully. You are not broken. You're not alone. And it's not one of those common things that we hear from other women in this season of their life. So whether you're in a relationship and you're really feeling disconnected from your partner, or you're single and you're wondering, why do you feel numb in that department? Or you're just trying to figure out what's going on in your body right now. This episode is for you. So let's get into it, all right? So first of all, let's really talk about this. Low libido also has another name. It's called hypoactive sexual desire disorder, or HSDD. When it comes to the clinical portion of it, it's one of the most common symptoms of perimenopause and menopause. Some research shows that even up to 68% of postmenopausal women report a decreased desire of sex. Yeah. So that's not just a small number. 68% is basically telling us that is the majority. That's the majority of us women. And yet, it's one of those symptoms that women are least likely to bring up with their doctor. And you know what? Because of that, they're least likely to get real help when they actually do. So we talk about hot flashes all the time. Menopause, hot flash, hot flash. We talk about sleep. We talk about brain fog. But what about desire? That's still somehow treated like it's a bonus feature. Like it's not really part of who we are. Let's be real. It is a fundamental part of who we are and how we feel about our bodies. So here's what I want you to hold on to. Desire is not a luxury. It's actually a signal. When it shifts or it disappears, your body's communicating something. And our job is to listen. Our job is not to shame ourselves into silence, but to listen to our bodies, okay? And I want us to really, we're in this talking and having this clear line of communication. So let's just be upfront. There is no universal norm. What matters is whether you feel satisfied with your own desire, not if you're measuring up to your partner's expectation or some imaginary standard that you had before menopause, or maybe some imaginary standard that you saw in a movie somewhere. This is how it should be because that's how it was in this movie or that movie. No, okay? If your libido has dropped from where you want it to be, it's worth paying attention to. And that's exactly what we're going to be doing today. So what actually drives our desire? Let's talk about that. Before we, go deep into why our libido drops, we need to understand how desire actually works in women, because it's often really different than how we've been taught. All right, most of us grew up with this idea of desire is this spontaneous thing, right? It's like a switch that flips and suddenly you're in the mood. But honestly, that model describes a lot of men's experience of desire. It really doesn't describe a lot of women's. So we have a researcher, I don't know if you guys have read this book by Emily Nagoski, and she has a book that's called Come As You Are. She describes two systems that governs desire. You have the sexual excitation system, and this is really stuff that will turn you on. Everything that signals sex is good is a good idea right now. Touch, mood, connection, safety, novelty. And then we have the sexual inhibition system, which is that's your brakes. Everything that signals not right now. And that's stress, distraction, pain, conflict, body image, and feeling unseen. Now, if we really think about, for most women, the brake system is very sensitive. That means that even a small amount of stress, disconnection, or distraction can completely override the desired portion, even when technically nothing's wrong, right? But this is what we can say, and this is why you want sex on a relaxed vacation but feel nothing when you're at home and is busy. Do you feel like there's a big difference, right? You're like, well, what's the difference? If we think about it, when you're on vacation, some of the external stressors that you have at your home is not there. Like you're in a different mood, you're like relaxation mode, the scenery is different, the whole everyone's in a and you're really placed in an environment, especially if you're like in a hotel and some of those all inclusive, they really put you in an area where you can completely be at ease, right? So you can see that it's different than your home life where you're just really busy and your desire disappears. Your breaks are just pumped too hard when you're at home if you really think about it in these two realms. So when we talk about low libido, a lot of the work actually is talking about taking your foot off the brakes. It's not just pressing the accelerator harder, but how do we take our foot off the brakes, right? So what are some of the common causes of low libido in women? Okay, let's walk through this. So why does libido drop? Alrighty, so some of the most common things, and we're gonna be real, let's just be honest with each other, because you never know, it's not really just one thing, right? But I know you guys might be like, really? But yeah, one of the number one causes is hormones. And I mean, all of us in this community, we get this, right? This is a big one for us. During perimenopause and menopause, our estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone, like all three of the major players, they start to decline. And they all play a role in sexual desire, arousal, and satisfaction. So estrogen keeps the vaginal tissues healthy, lubricated, and sensitive. And that's why you're hearing this big tout about like vaginal estrogen cream. Like, is it worth it? Da da da. Estrogen is needed in these tissues. It keeps it healthy, like we said, it's lubricated and sensitive. So when we start to lose our estrogen and it drops, many women start to experience dryness. The area, since it's no longer lubricated, it's not getting the estrogen to that area. It starts to thin, and then you start having some discomfort during sex. And if we talk about that, pain is one of those things that pumps the brakes, right? So you can see that becomes its own valid reason to avoid intimacy altogether. And this whole system where you're having the thinning of the vaginal area, the dryness, and the discomfort during intercourse, that's called the genital urinary symptoms of menopause, or GSM. And it's extremely uncomfortable. And the other thing too is that it's treatable. Isn't that awesome to just know that, wow, I don't have to suffer through this? And you know, talking with a lot of women out there, I'll say that a lot of women are suffering in silence because a lot of these changes are happening. And this is not something that you just openly go and talk about. And you may or might not talk about this with your girlfriends or your sisters or your cousins or, you know, someone whom you're close to. You might just really be suffering and knowing like, whoa, it really is a little bit uncomfortable. But to know that, yes, even though it's uncomfortable, you can actually do something about it. It should be really special to know, and it should bring some comfort to you. So testosterone, yes, that's another hormone, and guess what? We got it. Yes, women have it too, and it matters, and it's closely linked to libido and also sexual responsiveness. So as that declines, the thought of even going through this through menopause, when the testosterone levels decline, then you start having some of the changes in that low libido. So low testosterone in women is still, there's still research in it, but we definitely know that having that desire, losing one of these special and important hormones leads to a decrease in the desire and arousement and therefore satisfaction in that department. So if you're on hormone birth control pills or certain types of HRT, it's worth knowing that some of the formulations can affect free testosterone levels. And this is a conversation that's worth having with your provider who really understands these hormonal health, right? So just think about it. Just know that, like, yes, you're on these birth control pills. A lot of women, we're on that during our early phases. But just know that sometimes that can cause some of the decrease in testosterone that's levels, the free testosterone levels, and therefore a decrease in some of that libido. Alrighty, we talked about the hormones. Now let's talk about stress and mental health, because that is number two, one of the number two reasons why we have low libido and therefore having a decreased desire for sex. So your nervous system, we talked about, is not designed to be aroused and stressed at the same time. Because if you think about it, right? If you're really stressed and you're trying to get away from that saber-toothed tiger, I don't feel like if you are running and you're trying to survive, if that's the time to be aroused. No, your body knew what it was doing. And therefore, having arousal and stress at the same time is something that just doesn't really happen. So chronic stress, which a lot of us nowadays, it floods our body with cortisol. That's the life that we're living. We're living in this time where we're just really dealing with a lot of chronic stress, and therefore our cortisol levels are really, really high. So having extremely high cortisol level directly suppresses our sex hormones. And beyond that, we don't even want to go into some of the other stuff, right? Yes, we actually do. Anxiety, depression, trauma, low self-esteem, all of these things, they're like stored up in our body. And sometimes it shows up in the bedroom. So when you are under stress, when you're feeling anxious, when you're depressed, sometimes it's hard for you to be able to bring on that arousal portion because all of these things are counteracting it, right? So there's some medications also to know that you're taking meds to help to offset some of the issues such as maybe anxiety or depression. And a very popular category of medications are the SSRI. So these are known to reduce libido, and that's a side effect of it. So you fix one thing, but then unfortunately on the other end, you're having a decreased libido as the side effect of that. So that's something for you to know. So the SSRIs have been known to reduce libido as a side effect, and it creates, like that's that irony, like, I'm no longer feeling anxious or I'm no longer stressed, but also I don't have a desire. Yeah. So it's one of those things to talk to your doctor, right? So if this is you, please don't suffer in silence because there are options. There are options. We are here to just let you know that these things are there, but talk to your prescriber because it's not like, okay, well, now I'm just going to have to sit and suffer in silence. Absolutely not. You have options out there. So talk to your prescriber and see what options are right for you. So we've just had those number two things. So now we're moving on to number three, which is relationship dynamics. Desire doesn't exist in a vacuum, people. It lives inside relationships, and it's really, really sensitive to what's going on here, right? Unresolved conflict, emotional distance, unforeseen feelings, or feeling unappreciated, not feeling seen, holding on to resentment, a lack of emotional safety. All of these can kill one's libido. You can't feel desired, respected, and also feel turned on by the same person if those two are in contradiction. So if you don't feel safe, if you don't feel that emotional safety, if you don't feel seen, if you're feeling unappreciated, if you're having emotional distance, or if you're having conflicts that's just unresolved, then that directly will affect your libido because you won't feel like you can really bring on that desire at the same time. So this is something that one needs to really, take a check and see if you're having that happening in your relationship and see if that could be one of the reasons for that low libido. And of course, for us women, we experience this desire and we are really tied closely with our emotional connection to others. So emotional intimacy for us usually precedes sexual desire rather than follow it. So being honest with oneself and honest with where you are in a relationship is something to help to bring on or to understand why you. This episode is brought to you by Truly Balanced Wellness Care. Most high-level women are told that their lives are normal while they're struggling to lead through brain fog and fatigue. At Truly Balanced, we don't settle for not sick. we architect for peak performance. Whether you need a 30-minute hormone strategy session to audit your labs or are ready for our 3-month Jumpstart Intensive, we provide the physician-led roadmap to get you back to your best. Visit the link in the show notes or go to www.trulybalancedwc.com to secure your spot. Now, back to the conversation. Might be having low libido. Number 4, physical health and pain. So if we think about some of the things that we go through as women, some women, you're dealing with things like endometriosis, PCOS, the vaginismus, pelvic floor dysfunction. And we've talked about the genital urinary symptoms of menopause, but some women, you've been having a lot of these issues going on for a while, and therefore it hurts for you to have intercourse, right? And therefore you're going to avoid that because that's your body's natural response. You tense up because you know that instead of it being a pleasurable experience, it's going to be painful. So these are things that can also attribute to this, which is the physical health and pain. There are also some other issues that, such as thyroid issues, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and certain medications can play a role. When we hear about these things, you're like, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, the vessels to these areas of our bodies, because blood rushes to these areas with desire, right? The blood rushes to the area to get it nice and plump and all of that. When the blood vessels to these areas are damaged from chronic diabetes or cardiovascular disease, where's the blood gonna go? So that portion of that desire, you might be willing, but the body might not be able. So these are all things that can affect this role in intimacy and also not just desire, but being able to perform one's act. Alrighty, number 5, life circumstances. Exhaustion. Let's just talk about it. For some, you're either caring for your aging parents. I know that some women, you're in your mid-40s and you're into parenthood, and some of it might be new for you. And, some women are like, woo, I finally get the kids out the house. But you have some women that are like, woo, I just had my first kid, or I just had another kid. But they still have that demanding job. You still have life going on. You are taking one to daycare. You're taking one to adult daycare because you might have an ailing parent. And you're just stuck in what we call that sandwich generation, right? So all of this happens. And let's just talk about it. Your libido might just drop because you know what? You don't have anything left in that tank. That tank is T with a T, right? Just totally empty. And that makes sense. At the end of the day, you are drained. You're physically exhausted. Yeah, that's the last thing that's on your mind at that point in time. So that actually is something that can damper and put a pause in the desire, which is life's circumstances. And come on now. That completely makes sense. Now, we've talked about all, of the issues and things, a good amount of things that can help to dampen that desire. But now let's talk about what is it that we can do, right? Let's talk about what is it that we can do about that. So I want to see what are some of the things that can actually help. And I want to approach this in layers because, just be real also, one size is not going to fit all situations, right? So we're going to approach this in layers. Layer 1. Start with curiosity, not with pressure. I know a lot of us ladies, we are definitely fixers. We come and we're like, okay, this is wrong. I come in here, I'm going to set this room up this way because this is the best way to set it up for it to be most efficient for us to get the results that we want. And therefore, if we do this way and we place that over there, then we will get that result because that's how we are. Type A, we get things done, and everyone's just like, whoa, when we're done. But in this department, you have to change up a little bit. Start with curiosity, not with pressure. The worst thing that we can do for low libido is to start treating sex like a performance review. Come on now. Pressure and shame is the fastest way to deepen that problem. Instead, let's get curious. We start asking ourselves, when was the last time that I felt desire, felt desire, coming from that emotional standpoint. And it's just honoring who we are as a person and how most of us are wired. We're not saying that all of you are like that. That's not. But most of us, how most of us are wired. What was different then when we think about the last time we felt desire? And what were my brakes? What were my accelerators in those moments? So what made me pause and not have desire or took away the desire? Or what made it accelerate and brought on more desire? Just really coming from a place of curiosity. Now, another thing that we can do is really just documenting this. Now, for those of us in, the world, document, another way of saying this is journaling. Journaling, just writing it down. That can be something that's very powerful when we're looking for pattern, not just really answers, but just patterns. So we can journal and just be curious in asking ourselves, when was the last time? And what made me want to do this more, or what made me not want to at all? The second layer is addressing the basics: sleep, stress, and safety. We really talked about that, like our state of mind, mostly as women. Like if we have those safety issues, feeling desired, feeling wanted, and it's like we said, especially feeling safe, then we are most likely to be able to bring on said desire. Now, I know it sounds simple, like, yeah, okay. But let's be honest. Chronic sleep deprivation, which is something that is happening so often, is one of the most underrated libido killers. There's a study that's out there from University of Michigan, and they found that just 1 extra hour of sleep was associated with a significantly higher sexual desire the next day. Just one extra hour. So when we think about this overall, our stress management is not really just a luxury. It really is a part of our sexual health. And that means that we need to find sustainable ways to regulate our nervous system. So there are things that we know that naturally stimulates. It's natural ways of stimulating, and it's weird I'm saying stimulate, but it's really like it's stimulating calmness, right, within us. And one of that is movement. Movement naturally just brings on calm. We know that come in the form of like breathing, yoga, a lot of that. Time in nature naturally also brings on calmness. Therapy for some, meditation for others, or even creative outlets. There is also studies that shows that even just being creative, but using tactile creativity, so touching things, and that's why some artists like you create or you cook. When you cook, you're touching, and naturally that brings the cortisol levels down. So, these are just some ways and natural ways for you to do that. So you can check to see which of this works for you to help to bring that stress level down for you naturally, and therefore be able to bring up that desire, right? Layer 3, talk to your doctor. And when you talk with your doctor, be specific. Low libido deserves real medical conversation. So it's not just something that you just shrug off and like, yeah, and here's a pamphlet. Thank you so much for talking about it. No. Ask about like, how does this work with your hormones? Estradiol, your progesterone, total and free testosterone, DHEA, thyroid function. Like talk to them about it. Do I need to get this checked? Can there be medications that I'm taking for something else that's contributing to this, unbeknownst to me, right? Am I having this, should I be seeing a pelvic floor therapist? Is this something that you feel that might help? Is this something that is related to what's going on? Or can this be treated with a medication? Talk to your doctor. Ask these questions. I know that this is challenging because we're so used to asking about things that's a little bit easier. Oh, doc, my knee hurts whenever I do this. The doc says, well, don't do that. But what about if you're having this something that's deep aching within the inside? Your doc's here for that too. So don't be afraid to sit and to talk with your doctor. And if you're feeling dismissed, advocate for yourself. And if you're feeling that might not be the right one for you, find a provider who specializes in the women's sexual health, because they exist. and they will take you seriously. Yeah, because I'm one of them. Alrighty, so layer 4, tend to your relationship. So if you're partnered, low libido is often a signal that something needs a little bit tending to in your relationship space. So that might mean, is it couple therapy or even communicating? Maybe your partner has no idea that you're feeling this way, right? Having conversations, some deep conversations that you might have been avoiding. It might also mean that you may need to slow down. You might need to slow down. Maybe you need to rebuild that intimacy from the ground up with touching, connection, playfulness. So without feeling that pressure of the sex being the destination, maybe just starting with ramping up the desire. So tactile touch. And there's a reason why our skin is the largest organ. And if you think about our skin, it's such a powerful organ that we often ignore, other than we're like, okay, I'm going to put on my sunblock and get my facials. But our skin, when we're born, think of how powerful it is. That as women, as soon as we have our babies, for those of us who are parents, and they put the baby on you, that skin to skin connection, naturally, like we release hormones on each other. And that same skin to skin connection is so important within your relationship as well. So research has shown that many women desires is responsive rather than spontaneous. So it arises when you respond to arousal and not before it. So the path back to desire, you might be willing to think that it's not just out of obligation, but really it's out of like that openness, like where and how can I feel and be? Like we talked about, that safety, that openness, the connection, and tactile touch, which is another, tactile is a medical term for like touch, but that touch and that really simple touch can really bring on some of that desire if that's something that's missing, which is that connection with your partner. Alrighty, so layer 5 is exploring what it means for you. Now, so libido can shift across your lifetime. So sometimes low libido and low desire is also an invitation to reimagine your relationship, as we've been mentioning, and with not just you, but your body and also your pleasure. So sometimes it might be solo exploration. Maybe it needs to, maybe you just need to learn more about oneself, one's anatomy, and just understanding what's going on with oneself. So when we think about this, I want to bring this to a close, and I want us to really, really think about this. So menopause is a transition, ladies. It's not an ending. And part of that transition includes our sexuality. So the cultural story that we've been told is that desire is something that belongs only to the younger person. Oh, that's just for young folks. After a certain age or even after menopause, that chapter is closed. But I want you to think, and I want to challenge that story directly, because the research does not support it. And neither do countless women whom I've spoken with, who found their way back to desire through connection, through pleasure in this season of their life. Your desire matters. Your connection matters. Your body is worth understanding deeply. And not just to perform for someone else, but because you deserve to feel alive and to feel connected in your own skin. And that's at any age. Right? So low libido is not a character flaw. So please do not feel like that is. And it's not an inevitable part of age, and you just have to accept it's a signal. And signals are meant to be listened to and responded to. So if this episode resonated with you, I want to invite you to take one step. Book a complimentary consultation with me at Truly Balanced Wellness Care. So just go to www.trulybalancedwc.com. So whether you're dealing with low libido, hormonal imbalance, sleep issues, or just trying to make sense of where you are in this menopausal journey, this is a space for you to get personalized support and real answers. Now, the link is in the show notes for you to be able to get that complimentary call with me. I want to thank you so much for being part of this community. I want you to take great care of yourself this week, and I will see you in the next episode. You've been listening to the Menopause Stories podcast. If today's conversation hit home, don't let your story stay stuck in that midlife hijack. Head over to the show notes to book your strategy session and to join the movement of women redefining their power. I'm Dr. Tamara Beckford. Stay optimized, stay bold, and I'll catch you on the next episode.